Hey vinyl friends and vinyl community, it's Brian from Brian's Vinyl Records, and I'm super excited to share this video with you today. As many of you who've been following this channel know, I've really gotten into collecting the Japanese pressings lately of some of my favorite albums of all time, and of course, I've been trying to collect all the Japanese pressings I can get for my favorite band, AC/DC. So I'm now going to share with you everything I have for AC/DC on Japanese pressings, which I believe is the full Japanese pressing catalog on vinyl, minus one album, and I've mentioned it numerous times in videos. I do not have 74 Jailbreak because I just can't justify paying the price that it gets for a 4-song EP. Just doesn't make sense to me. So I've decided that that's one I just don't need in my catalog. If somehow I run across it for dirt cheap, I may pick it up, but otherwise it's not going to be part of it. So let's show you what I do have. I'm really excited about this. We'll start with High Voltage. Of course, this is the debut album, I guess you could say, of AC/DC internationally. They, of course, had 2 albums released in Australia previous to this, but this was what came out when they were introduced to the world. High Voltage. It's really good. I love this Obi strip here. It comes on the Atco label. Really just beautiful, beautiful shape, and super excited when I got this one. This one's not a cheap one to get, but I got lucky and was able to get this for a really, really probably half off the normal price because nobody was bidding against me on this one. And so yeah, I picked that up, really excited about it. Next up, we have Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Of course, this album didn't come to the United States until 1981, but it was released in 1976 in Australia and in parts of Europe as well. This is the American track listing on it. So if you know anything about this album, they replaced a couple songs off of the original Australian release and put a couple songs on different songs on this one when they put it out in 1981. So this has the American track listing. So this one would have probably been released in 1981 as well in Japan, but just a great album. The title track, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, is fantastic. You've got Ride On, which became a staple from Who Made Who, which we'll get to. And then you've got things like Big Balls on here, Ain't No Fun Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire, Squealer, just a really good album. So AC/DC Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, a nice pink Obi, and this one is on the Atlantic record label. Next up is my personal favorite AC/DC album, and that is Powerage. I love this album. What's Next to the Moon, Kicked in the Teeth Again, Gone Shootin', Rock and Roll Damnation. Just a really, really kick-ass album. Nice white and red Obi strip on this one, also on the Atlantic label. And this one is a very tough one to get, especially in as good a shape as I have it in here. I was super excited when I did finally find this one. And if you remember watching on my video finds, when I did get this, it became the most expensive record I had ever bought, only to be outdone a little bit later by another one, which we'll get to in a little bit. But Powerage, just a phenomenal album. Super happy to have the Japanese press of that. Next up, we got If You Want Blood, You've Got It. This, of course, the first AC/DC live album officially released by the band. Bon Scott featured here. This was put out, I think, between Powerage and Let There Be Rock. So it mostly focuses on the songs previous to Let There Be Rock, and just a really, really good live album. If you like live AC/DC, this is a phenomenal album to get. Probably a favorite among AC/DC fans for live versions. But here we go. Nice, really cool Obi strip, of course, and on the Atlantic label as well. If You Want Blood, You Got It. And next up, like I said, is Let There Be Rock. This was the final piece. Well, actually, the second to last piece that I picked up. This was extremely hard for me to find. And lo and behold, I had been looking, almost bought one that didn't have the Obi strip on it. And the place where I buy a lot of my Japanese all of a sudden had one for sale. And it was cheaper than I had seen it anywhere else, without the Obi even. and I jumped on it and was super excited. Let There Be Rock, AC/DC, really nice Obi strip on the Atlantic label, of course. Super hard to find this one. Really excited when I did, and it is in just beautiful condition. All of these are in beautiful shape. Got really lucky in getting those. The Japanese took very good care of their records, so most of the time you're going to find them in just amazing shape. Next up, we have Highway to Hell, and as I mentioned earlier, Power Edge was the most expensive record I ever purchased, and then this came along, and this became the most expensive album I ever purchased. Hard to find, beautiful, especially with the Obi strip. Love it. Atlantic Records, the last album with Bon Scott on vocals before unfortunately he passed away, and just awesome album, and super pumped to have found that. Next up, we have AC/DC's Back in Black, the first album to feature Brian Johnson on vocals. This is one of the best-selling albums of all time. I think it might be 2 or 3 on the list behind Michael Jackson. Just a killer album. Shook Me All Night Long, the big hit off here. Hell's Bells, of course. Back in Black, the title track. Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. Just kick-ass album. One of their best by far. And nice red Obi strip. We got the Atlantic label on there, and just super pumped. I have bought this twice now. The first one I got, the album itself was just not in the best shape. The second one I got was missing the Obi strip, so I was able to just basically Frankenstein together an album that is in great shape. They're the same pressing, so it wasn't a big deal. So I got a really beautiful cover, an Obi strip, and a great vinyl record as well. So Back in Black, AC/DC. Up next, we have For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. The follow-up to Back in Black sold very well. This is a gatefold cover, just like the US pressings of it are, with the nice Obi strip along the side there. Excellent album. Comes on the Atlantic label, just similar to the United States version, on a custom Atlantic label there to match the brown cover of the album. So super excited about that as well. Next up, we got AC/DC's Flick of the Switch. Very raw, very underrated in my opinion album. This one, they stopped using Mutt Lange as the producer. Of course, Mutt Lange did the previous 3 albums, Highway to Hell, Back in Black, and For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. And they ended up doing this on their own with George Young and Harry Vanda, who did their previous albums before Mutt Lange came in. And so people who are accustomed to that really crisp sound that Mutt Lange gives you got a whiff of this and didn't appreciate it at first, I don't think, because it does sound raw. It does sound like the early 70s style of AC/DC, just punched raw right at you. But there's a lot of great hidden gems on here. The title track, Guns for Hire, Bedlam in Belgium, pardon me. Just a really good album. Embossed cover, which is really cool. Really nice Obi strip on there to match, and of course the Atlantic record label. Beautiful album, and highly recommend if you are a AC/DC fan, check this out. If you don't know this one very well, check it out. It's a great album. Next up, we have AC/DC's Fly on the Wall. This is one of the first ones that I was able to procure as I was going through and picking up AC/DC Japanese pressings. Beautiful album. Love the Obi strip to kind of get that blue to match with the Fly on the Wall there. Again, we got the Atlantic label here. They went with the brown label again, similar to For Those About to Rock, to match the brown cover. And just one of my favorite albums from the Brian Johnson era. I've always really dug this album. Most people, not their favorite. The production suffers a little bit, but on vinyl it sounds way better than it ever did on CD and cassette. So check it out. Fly on the Wall. Good album. Next up, Who Made Who? AC/DC, Who Made Who? Of course, the soundtrack to Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive movie. If you haven't seen it, it's so bad it's good. That's the kind of movie you'll be watching there. Cult classic, I would call it, and one that I love watching from now and then. It's just cracks me up every time I do. But Atlantic label here, classic Atlantic label. This Obi strip is a replica. This one I had to pick up without the Obi, and I have a good buddy who's able to replicate these Obi strips, and so I was able to get a replica of this one. Typically I have him put a replica on the Obi, so I know that it's not an official Obi, but he did a phenomenal job on this, just matching the original Obi strip, and just awesome. Next up, I have AC/DC's Blow Up Your Video. This was released after the success of Who Made Who, and this one, of course, didn't catch on as well as some of the other ones. I like this album quite a bit. I think there's a lot of hidden gems on this album, and if you were to just listen to it, again, production wasn't the greatest on this album, and I think that caused a lot of the problems with people not enjoying it, because it did sound a little kind of like they were in a tin can at some points recording. But I like this one a lot. Again, on vinyl, sounds way better than it ever did on CD. So AC/DC, Blow Up Your Video. And then that kind of ended the Japanese pressings. By then, everything was CD, and so they stopped really doing a lot of vinyl pressings in Japan, and especially when they did do them, they didn't do them with the Obi strips as much anymore either. But for some reason, when AC/DC put out their most recent album in Japan, they decided to make one with an Obi strip, which I think is awesome. This is one I never thought I'd ever find. You just don't see it very often available. This is a brand new, still sealed copy of Power Up by AC/DC, their 2020 album, and phenomenal album. And so I was super excited when this one came up available, and I was the only one to bid on it, and got it for what I think is a fair price, especially when I look at what they go for now, and especially since this thing is still sealed, never opened. I do plan to open it and listen to it, because I want to hear the difference between the Japanese version and the American version that I have. I think that'll be a fun listen, see if they did any kind of changes in the way they mastered or EQ'd the album for Japan. But super pumped to do it. This one completes my AC/DC Japanese Obi albums. Everything is original minus Who Made Who, which I did, like I said, got a replica Obi strip made for that one, but everything else is official, good, almost everything. I think everything is complete with inserts and everything else. Super pumped to have it, loving it. I think a lot of these sound absolutely stellar on vinyl. I know a lot of people have differing opinions on Japanese pressings. I tend to really gravitate towards them. I think they sound a little better. I'm not a guy who needs a lot of big bassy sound, and I know Japanese pressings have a tendency to have a little more highs and clarity as far as that goes, and to me it sounds a little better. And so I've really enjoyed listening to those Japanese pressings of my favorite band and all those albums. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll have another one hopefully in the next month or two to do on the other band that I've been collecting all the Obi strips for, and that is Kiss. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. And yeah, I'd love to hear comments below. Tell me about your AC/DC, favorite AC/DC albums, what you thought of these, and all that. Until next time, keep spinning, Vinyl Friends.